All right, in this lecture we are going to tackle Thomas Aquinas and his proofs for the existence of God. This is a great case study to compare with Anselm and his ontological method, because it illustrates quite clearly the difference between a Platonic framework and an Aristotelian framework. Some of the things I want a student to get out of this lecture is first, to be able to discuss the essential arguments of Aquinas' 5 ways. There's 5 different arguments Aquinas makes there. Secondly, I want the student to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of these arguments. Which one is most persuasive? Which one has problems? Is this a better way to look at the existence of God than Anselm or not? And thirdly, and most importantly, I want the student to understand and to be able to identify the Aristotelian character of these arguments for the existence of God. So, I think the best way to introduce this is to talk a little bit about the text in which Aquinas writes about these proofs first. Aquinas wrote 2 major works, Summa Contra Gentiles and Summa Theologica. Summa Theologia. I always screw that up. Both of these were texts to address threats to the Christian way of looking at the world. And what you have to remember is during the 13th century in Europe, one of the big ideas that the medieval period had to engage was Islamic ideas. Muslims controlled all of Spain and had moved up towards Tours in France. Muslims controlled Turkey into Macedonia and Greece and were moving rapidly towards Vienna. Muslims were literally all around us as Western Europeans during this period. And the European Christians had to engage not just with Muslims physically or militarily, but we had to engage their ideas as well. And Aquinas developed these 2 texts in order to engage the Islamic ideas, the Islamic worldviews that were being injected into Western Europe. I had mentioned before that the scholastic movement was one step removed from the monasteries and wasn't very pastoral, which is true, but that's not to say that scholastic thought wasn't relevant to anything going on in the world. Scholastic thought was developed so that it could address real-world problems, but at the academic level, not necessarily at the pastoral level. So what we'll do a little bit is try and bring this academic approach into a more practical framework. But in Aquinas' Summa Theologia, he included 3 sections. First one is on the existence of God, second was on ethics, and the third one was on Christ, obviously something that Muslims and Christians disagree about. And it demonstrates the trajectory of his method, that Aquinas used external things in order to be able to understand God better. Another thing I find interesting in the 3 sections of the Summa here is that Aquinas started with topics that Muslims and Christians agree on to a large extent. Proofs for the existence of God, even some ethical convictions, in order to introduce the one area in which we disagree radically. I think that's very interesting, very wise. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that, but it does show that Aquinas was writing to be relevant in his culture and in his context. So we're going to look at the 5 proofs that Aquinas described and developed to demonstrate the existence of God. They're nicknamed the 5 ways. The technical philosophical term for it is the cosmological argument. So Anselm gave us the ontological argument. Aquinas gives us the cosmological argument, and there's 5 of them. The first one is God as the unmoved mover. Second one is God as the uncaused cause. The third one is the argument from contingency. The fourth is the argument from gradation. And the fifth one is the argument from design. Now that fifth argument we actually know as the teleological argument that we'll talk about more in later lectures, but we will discuss it a little bit here in reference to Thomas Aquinas. The first of these arguments, the unmoved mover, Aquinas argues that we see motion in the world around us. And anytime you see something in motion, that's an effect. And every effect has to have a cause. There must be someone who put that in motion. And when you look at the cause, well, obviously that cause is in motion. So there's someone that must have put that in motion. And there's someone that has to put that in motion. And you can trace back motion all the way back to a single unmoved mover. And as Aquinas says in his text, we commonly refer to this person as God. So Aquinas is making the argument, because there is motion in this world, there must have been an ultimate person who put it in motion, an unmoved mover, and we call this person God. The second argument Augustine describes is the uncaused cause, very closely related to the unmoved mover. We see cause and effect in this world, and every effect needs a cause. And you can always explain one effect by a cause, and you can march backwards until you find the uncaused cause. So according to Aquinas, because we can see effects in this world, there must have been a cause to those effects, which means there must have been an ultimate causer, and we commonly refer to this as God. So unmoved mover, uncaused cause. And the third argument is the argument from contingency, argument from existence. Hey, we see stuff that exists. Where did it come from? Everything we have is contingent on something else. So the only way we can explain the fact that anything exists is that there must have been someone to make it exist, a creator. And we commonly refer to this as God. The fourth argument is the argument from gradation, or the argument from degree. We talk about things as being better and being best. We rank things, we rate things, we grade things on a scale. And anytime we grade something on a scale, we have to tell ourselves, okay, well, there must be some standard by which the scale is judged. If this sandwich is a worse sandwich, let's say I give this sandwich a D, then I must be comparing it to some sort of ultimate standard of sandwich. If I say this person is more pretty, if I say that this task is easier, anytime you assign a degree to something, there must be an ultimate standard by which it is compared. And in Aquinas' argument, we refer to this as God. The fifth argument is very similar in that it is an argument from design, but it is a little different. When we see things in this world that have evidence of a design, it must have had a designer, something that brought that into intelligent being. Now that later on in history will be developed as its own argument. So we're just going to let that stand for right now. But Aquinas' 5 ways, Aquinas' cosmological proof for the existence of God: unmoved mover, uncaused cause, contingency, gradation, and design, all have one important thing in common. In order for you to develop this argument, it is in reference to the physical world around us. In order for us to talk about an unmoved mover, we have to see something in motion in the physical world. In order for us to talk about an uncaused cause, we have to see an effect in the physical world. In order to talk about contingency, we have to see existence in the physical world. In order to talk about degree, we have to see something, a phenomena in the physical world in order to grade. This is a fundamentally different method than Anselm. Because when you look at Anselm's proof of the existence of God, his ontological proof from being, he's able to come up with this philosophical formula in his head, this rationalistic formula that supports the existence of God. In Anselm's method, you don't have to look at the world around you at all. And that is very illustrative of a Platonic way of doing business. For Aquinas, in order to support the existence of God, this idea that God exists, he appeals to things that we can sense, things that we can see and touch and smell and taste in the world around us. That in order for us to know the nature of the reality of God, we have to go to the physical world. That's an Aristotelian method of doing things. That's looking at form and substance in order to get the essence of chair, so to speak. This is a great illustration of a shift that appeared in the 13th century from a Platonic framework to an Aristotelian framework. Now, please don't understand this as one day people were Platonists and then the next they were Aristotelians. That's not how it worked. And actually, Aquinas' thought was not incredibly popular during his own lifetime. Of the several universities in Europe, only a couple were to be considered, Aristotelian or Thomistic. But when the Reformation happened, when the Catholic Church needed to defend why it believes this over and against the Protestant reformers, Aquinas took on a enormous significance in being able to defend Roman Catholicism against Protestantism. And that's when you see the true explosion of Aristotelian thought in the Catholic Church. But this should challenge each and every one of us. How do we see the world around us? How do we organize the world around us? How do we look at our faith? Is it through a Platonic framework? Is it through an Aristotelian framework? Are those divisions not relevant in this a discussion? How effective are these arguments for the existence of God? The past couple hundred years, some people have offered very elaborate defenses and arguments against this cosmological proof. For example, this idea that God is an uncaused cause. One philosopher says, well, you don't necessarily need an ultimate cause in order to explain the world around us. Imagine a chain link floating in the air. And we ask ourselves, well, why is that chain link floating there? We can point to the link above it. Okay, well, the existence of this chain link floating in the air can be explained simply by looking at the one previous to it. Well, what if there are an infinite number of chain links and it's not ultimately tied to anything? Can you not explain the position and the existence of these chain links just in terms of the link most proximal? That's an interesting idea to think about. It was actually a mathematician that argued against that theory, and I believe his name is Heidelberg's Hotel. He developed this hypothetical scenario saying, okay, let's say you're a hotel manager, and your hotel has an infinite number of rooms, and you close half of the rooms to renovate them. Well, how many rooms are you left with? Well, still an infinite number of rooms. Okay, let's say your renovation is over and you open up all the old rooms and then you double the number of rooms that you have. How many rooms do you have? Well, an infinite number of rooms. And this mathematician says, well, that's absurd. That just, practically speaking, is an absurdity that doesn't mean anything. And his conclusion was infinity can exist as a mathematical hypothetical concept, but infinity cannot exist in the physical world as a reality. So if we are to explain the physical world, we do not have recourse to use an infinite regress, an infinite number of chain links in order to explain the existence of this chain link. This idea of the cosmological proof has been debated for hundreds of years, and within our 21st century worldview, way of looking at the world, there's something about the cosmological argument that fits with how we view the world. Now, one of my arguments in a later lecture, when we talk about the Enlightenment, we'll talk about how the Aristotelian worldview became the dominant worldview over Platonism and how it led to the scientific age and how we live in a scientific context in our own day. So in many ways, you and I are more wired to think as an Aristotelian than a Platonic person. So do we agree with the cosmological argument simply because we live in an Aristotelian framework? Or is there something true and real about that? These are great questions I hope we have a chance to explore further. Thank you.